right, let's get our other Facebook groups in here before it's officially time to go. Spinning wheels going on. 1 and 2. All right, welcome in, welcome in. It is Tuesday morning, the 15th. We're halfway through August, and we are starting to turn the page. Looking forward to the San Francisco 49ers this week here in Broncos country. It's time for an episode of Broncos for Breakfast. I am Nick Kendell, joined by, as always, for these morning shows, Scott Kennedy. Scott, how are you doing this morning? What's new? How you been the last 24 hours?
Doing good. Just working away, lots of Broncos. Been going through videos and stuff, posting those on Mile High Huddle, and really enjoyed listening to and watching Alex Singleton yesterday. I put up a couple of videos of him that'll be up this afternoon on Mile High Huddle YouTube page. Just linebacker, man. What anybody my age loves about football is Alex Singleton. It's just the way he still thinks the game. It's that old school mentality. Just a lot of fun. So good to be here, and hope everybody's doing well. And some of the emotions have leveled back out a little bit after a few days of reflection from the game, and looking forward to the game, the next game for the Broncos at a much better hour.
Yeah, hopefully no overtime. I'd rather have the Broncos win, of course, but pretty happy that one didn't go any longer than it had to with the backups. I mean, in preseason,
there shouldn't be overtime in preseason.
There
might not be. Is there? Did they mention that? Because I watched the condensed version the last series.
They did mention it in that. Now, that being said, are we taking those Arizona Cardinals?
Yeah, Ron Wolfley?
Are we taking them for their word? I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's right.
He's got something coming out of his neck. Okay. God, went on for like 10 minutes on that. But anyway, I guess I'll just say now I'm in a different location right now. I'm still at my house, but my normal basement layer, my folding table that I'm typically set up on, have it set up upstairs where the air conditioner is. So my wife, who works from home, can be much more comfortable. So I'm in her office. Luckily, it's not too hot here yet, but it's hot this week in the Pacific Northwest, and most houses out here in Seattle don't have any sort of air conditioner. So it's when it's 80, 90 degrees and you don't have AC, it's pretty darn miserable, even though that's only typically 7 to 10 days of the year.
It doesn't matter. Put a $5,000 air conditioner on a note of $500,000, and it's like maybe 25 cents on your mortgage. Put in the air conditioner. You need it.
Yeah, the big issue is renter.
I know, but you should be looking at that, and that's how you put pressure as a consumer on the landlords. Oh, you don't have AC? Sorry, I'm going to go across the street to this guy. It's $25 more a month. Don't care.
Yeah, we have a tower air conditioner unit that works pretty well for one room, so we can sleep in that. But during the day, it can be pretty miserable. But it's not miserable. I know there's super chats starting to come in, but when you flash this big in here, we want to get to you. FA coming in here. Hope you're doing well.
Hot. FA's coming in hot pink.
Yeah, gosh, I'm turning red, not just because it's hot in here and there's no airflow, but FA coming in says, have a great show. We'll watch later. Hot take of the day. Raiders are world beaters. They spanked the Niners. Broncos country will be all right. So FA obviously using a little bit of a sarcasm here. The Raiders' fourth stringers kind of look good against the 49ers' fourth stringers. Aiden O'Connell, the backup quarterback rookie from Purdue for the Raiders, actually looked really good. I think he went 13 for 15 with 2 touchdowns. Yeah, Raiders, not world beaters. We'll see what they look like week 1, but I don't think that's going to be a very good team this year. Probably hovering around. Well, what would you think Vegas has the Raiders at? 6 wins, 7 wins, probably something around there.
That sounds about right. I don't know. I don't know how you back Josh McDaniel at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And then if Jacobs doesn't come in, is Garoppolo an upgrade on Derek Carr? It's a push at best, I think.
At best.
And especially when you're talking about familiarization and everything. So we'll see. Got to beat them though. It's been a while. Yeah. And but no, the Raiders preseason, 'tis a season for overreaction. And FA to that point, and again, thank you, my friend.
Yeah.
Week 1 is an overreaction. There's somebody's going to lose that has, is a Super Bowl contender, and the headlines are going to start jumping and all that. Give me 3 games at least to start forming an opinion I think is going to be fairly valid for the course of a 17-game season, as opposed to just a 1 game. And especially, good Lord, game one of the preseason, for goodness sakes.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we're gonna have because we have the 3-4 times a week kind of show on here. It's pretty hard for us to be not too reactionary sometimes because we're reacting to what's the latest news in this kind of cycle that we're in. But for the Russell Wilson stuff, for Sean Payton, this offense this season, people will be asking on Twitter or whatever. What do you think? What is your reaction after game one? It's like typically my response is give me 6 to 8 weeks of games so we can kind of get a better baseline of what to expect. But hard to do that because people want analysis after one game, but I have to understand it's painting a bigger picture. It's always, I like to say, puzzle pieces. We're putting together puzzle pieces, but that's only one puzzle piece at a time. You can get an idea from the one puzzle piece. It's painting the picture, but it's not standalone.
Yeah, and your questions going in. I mean, the biggest concern. What was your biggest concern from what you saw? And FA's coming in back to back here, so we're gonna. Troy, I see you coming. Troy's listening later too. We'll get to you in a second, Troy. And I saw your follow up on that too. So we'll take care of you, Troy. But FA's coming in hot this morning. What was your number one concern with the Denver Broncos after, if that was what you're watching? This was a game. This is what I saw. What's my number one concern?
The offensive line,
offensive
pass protection.
line.
Yeah.
Offensive line.
Kicking game is there too, but I feel like you can replace kickers easier. It's just one player, and it's just like, okay, they suck. We'll bring in somebody else. If the offensive line is bad, it's pretty hard to dig out from one season.
I agree. I kind of led you right into that because I agree. It was kind of rhetorical. We've already talked. But the offensive line, I have it's faith, I guess, that it will get better than what we saw in game one of a preseason with a new scheme, new coach, new coordinator, two new guys on the lines. If anything, one of my two biggest takeaways on that weren't the offensive line as a whole was, okay, we need to see Garrett Bowles getting better, health wise and come back. And two was was encouraged with what I saw from Lloyd Cushenberry.
Yeah.
Okay. That's my big emotional hot take. And Nick, when you said we're here 3 or 4 times a week, so it'd be hard. My initial thought was to get too high or too low. Like I can't bring the shock reaction every day. It's too phony. I've got to have some sort of even keel when we're in here. We see y'all every day. I can't just go too high and too low, and especially not week 1 preseason.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I feel like I can get a little bit too high or too low depending on some things that drive me nuts, like just stupidity on the field or like horrible special teams play. Like I just don't have any patience for that. So I'll probably
you're not going to make a personnel judgment.
Yeah.
I mean, we can get some confirmation bias.
Yeah.
If Lloyd Cushenberry had been awful, we probably would have said, see, he's awful.
Yeah.
But no, 1, he wasn't. And 2, I'm not going to, well, he was really good. I'm not going to go have a parade and say, okay, the center position is fixed. No, let's see it.
Yeah.
And I'm not ready to wheel Garrett Bowles off a cliff just yet. Let's see it. Ben Powers, was he as good as we might have expected for the price tag? Probably not yet. Okay. Week 1, preseason, y'all. FA coming in the second time. He says, after rewatching the game, I'm even more encouraged. We look like a professional team out there. The concepts work. Russ has to trust it and not see ghosts, but the scheme looked great to me. FA, I agree. What I saw was when the offensive line on offense, when the offensive line did its job, the plays, Russell Wilson, the receivers were effective for the most part. Okay. Well, the offensive line is going to do its job most of the time. If you give up 5 sacks out of 50 offensive plays, that's considered really bad. So you're doing your job most of the time. So if I've got 25 plays where I get 20 dropbacks and I get a clean pocket, Russell Wilson and these receivers are going to hurt you.
Yeah.
That's a good thing, Nick.
Yeah, and just to your point, add data to the conversation. Russell Wilson dropped back 14 times overall in the game, went 7 for 13. One of the dropbacks ended up being a sack. But when he was kept clean, he went 5 for 5, 100% completion percentage, 10.6 yards per attempt, 53 yards total, NFL passer rating of 101.8. But when under pressure, he only went 2 for 8, 40 yards, so 5 yards an attempt. Did get one of those touchdowns on that. So imagine how bad it'd be without that, big touchdown coming from that as well, salvages the passer rating and whatnot. But Really, it does seem like it's going to come down to, again, we're taking very small sample size and extrapolating big things here. But from that one to just the ability to pass protect and whatnot is huge. I think that if the offensive line continues to look that poor in pass protection, the offensive scheme and points of emphasis would change. I think it would be much more run heavy just to not have the offensive line in that situation as much and protect Russ. Because I think the Broncos passed 2-to-1 pass to run ratio.
It was like 30. That look in my head where I was looking confused was me trying to do the math because I think it was like 37-25.
But when the first team offense was out there, I think it was about 2-to-1, just based on the offensive line reps. You can kind of follow that easily on Pro Football Focus's data sets that they have. But so I'd be curious as well. But FA coming in with $100, $99.98 technically coming in here. Thank you so much. Russ has to trust and not see goats, but the scheme looked good. Offensive line has to do a little bit better for him not to see ghosts as well. And I've typically been, you don't have to have world beaters on the offensive line, but they didn't look even, competent out there against a pretty poor Cardinal team. Sean Payton took the podium yesterday, made it sound like, he's not too worried about it. But I think if, we're after another preseason game and they look that poor against a 49ers team that has, Nick Bosa and Javon Hargrave, we'll see if those guys play. Then we might get a better idea.
Well, and like you said, I truly believe you're going to try and dictate with the run first. And when you've got McGlinchey out there, you've got everybody out there that you're going to have, and everybody stays healthy.
Yeah,
you're gonna run, and then that will take pressure off the quarterback if you can run the ball. Troy coming in early. Troy read the headline and said he had a bad connection. So I actually want to address this, Nick, because Troy makes a good point, even though it wasn't the point he made that he was trying to address. He says, hey, guys, we'll watch later. The ranking seems fair for now. That ranking was for Drew Sanders, which we'll talk about. That's the head of the show. It was a B- from NFL.com. And Troy thought it was for last year's draft class. He says, but a B- seems fair for last year's draft class. If Nick Bonito, Greg Dulcich, and Henningsen contribute much more and Mathis starts all year, the ranking could change dramatically by next year. So to Troy's point, is a B- fair for what you've seen from last year's draft class, or might it actually be I might even go a B. I might go a little bit higher than that. If I get a starting corner, if I can get in the second round, I can get a third edge. If I can get a quality receiver in Dulcich, which I think he will become, he was last year for sure, and I can get a rotational defensive tackle out of my draft class starting late second round, dude, that's a good draft. That's a real good draft. Your only miss in there so far is kind of, Montreal Washington. Yeah, so be it.
Owazurike,
yeah. But again, fourth round, I think, for Owazurike.
Very early fourth.
You were drafting late. And if I can get 4 contributors when my first pick is in the 60s, that's not a bad class.
It's not a bad class. I do want to guard against, are these guys taking the field because they are great, or are they taking the field because you don't have other quality competition around them? I mean, sometimes you see that with for years, the Jacksonville Jaguars started the most rookies, the most snaps for rookies. They had
all SEC freshman teams were always loaded with guys from Vanderbilt, and Ole Miss, and Mississippi State who would finish last in the league because they were playing all their freshmen.
Yep. Exactly. So that's the one thing I do want to guard against. It's Henningsen. I think he looked good for a rotational kind of guy, can knife back there. I don't think he's got a great anchor, sand in his pants, if you will, but that's something. Dulcich, tight end 2, seems to be displaced because of the inline ability, but for pick, 75, 76, not bad. And Bonito really standing out, but I just want to see what a lot of these guys look like in more competition. But I think B- is fine. It also depends on how you're grading the class because the Broncos are how do I put it? They're starting on first base, where a lot of people would be starting on third with the capital that they had. But overall, I think, looking like a pretty, considering the draft capital they had, making the most of their
picks. They're picks.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, gosh. Capital versus picks. But considering what they had.
Picks. That's what they are. You can call them those.
Yeah. Yeah. But they had lesser than average capital. But anyway, Troy, thank you so much.
Those are still picks. Lesser than average picks. Every time you say capital, put the word picks in there, and it still works. It's worked like that since the beginning of the draft in 1940.
Yeah. We'll have more fun
No,
with
but
this
to your
combo.
point, Benito, there's competition at edge. So if Benito gets in there and plays, it's because he's earned it, not because, oh God, why is Steven Means on the field? Steven
Oh,
Means,
God.
Atlanta Falcons joke, y'all. At Ogundeji, they didn't have anybody, period.
Mhm.
Benito has competition at edge. So if he becomes a contributor, it's because he's earned it. Dulcich, there's competition in the receiver room, whether you call tight end or not. He is out there. There is competition there. Henningsen is going to see field through osmosis. Now how does he look out there? He's kind of a default. Mathis, I think, absolutely is an earned position. Let me say that a little different. Like, in the second year, it was earned because they could have gone out and made some changes. He took advantage of an opportunity based on injury. Okay. And then he played really well. And then they felt good enough. It's like, we don't have to go out and get another corner. So, Mathis, I think, is good as well. So, Troy, I think B for this class right now is where it's trending, which is solid considering the level of draft picks you had.
Yeah, the picks were below average. I think they had the second most value in terms of the picks in that draft. But we will see how it plays out year 2. And a lot of these guys are going to have opportunities. And this class needs to do pretty well. I think I've said a few times on here how this class develops and how this new coaching staff can take them and put them in positions to succeed might have a large impact on the George Payton's job here and how Sean Payton views George Payton going forward. Like if he can come in and, you didn't have a lot of, value in your draft class, but you still maximized it, then, Payton might want to keep Payton around. Of course, from the ATON to the AYTON. Gary Palmer. Good morning, Nick and Scott. Good to see you, Gary.
Spitting bars.
Yeah, I'm just spelling bee in here. Gary Palmer, good morning, Nick and Scott, $9.99. Thank you so much, man. Hope you're doing well. Always appreciate Gary coming in. Also want to say hello to some more people. David Youngkin, good morning to you. I guess I wait until Sunday night to watch Broncos game because it's not on DirecTV until 10:30 Sunday night. That's no fun. There are some streaming sites.
And David, you can probably get a 7-day free trial on NFL Plus. It works on the Roku. That's how I watch mine. The NFL app works well on a Roku. And you get all the preseason games. So if you can get a 7-day trial, I would recommend it.
Mm-hmm. And if you're curious, I could probably maybe send you something over Twitter DMs if you hit me up. That was not you might have to click around a little bit. And you might want to install some stuff to protect your computer. But hey, I'm West Coast, and otherwise I'm getting Seattle games, and I'm not about that. Jeremy Sean, morning boys. Sanders will be fine once he adjusts to the speed of the NFL and stops thinking. You want him to keep thinking. Maybe overthinking, though, is the one you don't want there. Dave Glassman, appreciate you coming in. Kevin Gray, morning.
Though. I mean, you want to do your thinking pre-snap. You want to do your – and Singleton was talking about that a lot yesterday.
Yeah.
It's like why, I took a chance – and I love it anyway. On that big play he had, that big tackle for loss, he goes, not a lot of teams are running play action on 3rd and 1. You've heard me say on 3rd and long when teams run play action, I want to fire somebody on the spot. It's 3rd and 9, 3rd and 16, play action. I want to just fire him. It's like whoever called that play, you're fired. You don't even get to finish the game. Speaking of getting fired up. So he sold out and he goes, it was preseason. I had to, it was fun. And then he went and talk a little bit about, and Josie and I will talk about what we're going to do, pre-snap. Hey, and then we can cover for one another if we want to take a chance on something like that. So yeah. But yeah, you want guys overthinking, like you said. You don't want them to be in their head. You want them to play instinctively, I think is the term you're looking for there, Nick.
Yeah. Reactionary and have it be second interest. I think we talked about it on here a few days ago, but like when there's a natural disaster going on, the people who tend to live are the ones who have practiced the scenarios. And they when you're in a scenario like that, your hippocampus, I think, loses its blood. So you kind of go lizard brained for a little bit. And that means that stuff that you have in like muscle memory takes over. And that's where you want to be with a linebacker. You don't want to be overthinking. It just needs to be, you're not even thinking. It's almost like you're in a zone, so to speak, not zone coverage. Kevin Gray, good morning. Scott, Nick, big mile high salute. Good to see you. Alex Salazar, good to see you. Alex, Donald Willison, always coming in. Good morning, Nick and Scott. Jay Roper in the house saying, holy cow, I'm up. Nick, we need to talk about Stidham. Has a great arm take for a couple months ago. He does have a good arm. That doesn't He looked really bad in this game. I think he was also one of the most pressured quarterbacks in this game. He was really bad, but he has solid arm talent.
Russell Wilson was most.
Yeah.
The most, we showed it last night. You sent it to me. We showed it last night on the Mile High Huddle podcast that the most pressured quarterback of all the quarterbacks, and everybody most teams played 3, so there are probably 75 quarterbacks that played over the weekend at least.
Yeah.
Russell Wilson was pressured the most. Jarrett Stidham was pressured the 3rd most. And Ben DiNucci barely got breathed on.
Yeah.
Wow, which quarterback looked best?
And the run game,
how that works, isn't it?
And the run game with DiNucci was getting some explosive plays as well.
We said that yesterday. I felt like the backups for the Broncos did better against the third teamers. The back end of the roster held its own, where the first team looked a little discombobulated to start.
Yeah. They definitely did. But I mean, Stidham still has a good arm, but he did not look good in the game. So we'll see what he looks like going forward. I think we have more of a competition here with DiNucci and Stidham than Let's On. Will be fun to watch. Robbie Red says, good to be back live. Good to see you. EJ, good morning. Who else is worried about Max Crosby makes a Hall of Fame against us week 1? I'm worried as well. Also, they took that Texas Tech edge rusher who's kind of just a first guy off the bus looking dude who I can't remember his name. Tyree Wilson.
Tyree Wilson, wasn't it?
Yep, Tyree Wilson. So the Raiders have some talented edge rushers, but the rest of the defense I'm not super worried about, and their offensive line outside Colton Miller I'm not super worried about. So we'll see how it plays out. But yeah, Max Crosby, hell of a player. Good morning, Philip, and good morning, Michael. Good morning, Nick and Scott on Broncos for Breakfast. Go Broncos and Buckham. Hope you're doing well, Michael. We appreciate that.
Thank you for the stars, Michael, as always. Lawrence coming in with some big boy stars over on Facebook, too. He says, I noticed our best plays this season will be slants. Past tense noticed making a prediction will be. Maybe. It's a big focus on practice in our games, but Russ needs to work on releasing the ball quicker. He's holding on to it too long. Compared to the league, it's too long, and that will be a spot to address now, or maybe like yesterday, hopefully. So, yeah, getting rid of the ball quicker is part of trust, part of trusting the system, part of trusting your line, trusting your receivers, all that type of things. Again, I liked what I saw from Russell Wilson when he had time to throw. I can't say that last year. I'm like, okay, I said that earlier. These guys can hurt you when he has a clean pocket. Well, duh. That's pretty universal across the league, Scott. Wasn't last year. I had no faith him dropping back to pass that there'd be anybody open, and if there was, that there'd be a pass completion or that he'd even have time to throw. The game I saw with Russell Wilson was like, is he washed? Typically, that's a physical trait. Typically, unless the guy's had his eggs scrambled too many times. No, he's moving around well, and he's got a freaking cannon for an arm.
Yeah,
he's not washed. Can he play at a high level in this system? Remains to be seen. But the tools are still there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he's going to be the quarterback he was, 6-7 years ago in terms of the elusiveness and the explosiveness outside of the pocket. I think you're probably going to have to marry that a little bit more to the cerebral side of the game. But what made Wilson good was that play action, deep passing stuff, and not full field demanding reads within structure. Sometimes you get to the backside of a play, but it'd be out of structure. So we'll see what it looks like this season with him. Again, I think it keeps coming back to the strength of the offensive line and the potency of the rushing offense. It needs to be good enough that teams actually bite on play action, that are actually playing base, that are playing cover 1, cover 3. So you have those deep shots available to you versus, the cover 6 that we're seeing take across the league right now, pretty much saying you can have the underneath, you can have the middle of the field, you can have the run game. You're not beating us deep. Well, guess what? When teams do that, it's pretty damn hard for how Russell Wilson wins football. So the rushing game needs to be competent enough, and the quick pass game also needs to be much better than it was last season. But we'll see. If anybody's going to get him right, it's probably Sean Payton. He's one of probably three of the best coaches I'd trust to get him right in the pass game situation. So
yeah, he was the right coach for this team, and then we'll see what happens, see how it pans out this year. But Lawrence coming in with back-to-back good size stars. Lawrence, thank you for the support. He says 2 to 3 seconds max for a great QB. Anyone held it longer, dropped off, and any QB mentioned, look at the stats. Yeah, I mean, and it's also throwing on rhythm. Part of that, y'all have heard me say before. How many times, even at the college level, if you see a 5-step drop, back foot plant, ball comes out, it's completed 95% of the time on the first read. 1, 2, 3, bang. So that's part of the speed of it that comes out. You hit your first read, the farther you have to go down your progressions, the less likely you are to have a completion. That's just football, Nick.
Yeah, and I'm curious how much they're simplifying the reads for him because I think playing faster is better. But maybe last year he put too much on himself in terms of the pre-snap and post-snap read. Maybe they're simplifying it. I've heard talk of a lot of half-field read kind of stuff that we have come to love from that Shanahan system. And if you're reading high to low and you can use a little bit of athleticism to protect yourself, that's not the worst. It can win you a lot of games. Maybe it limits you to some point, right? If you don't have the ability to do the full field reads, but that's okay. You can work around it. Albert Knoppers, good morning to you. Hope you're doing well. Good morning. Bama X is on a long road trip, so driving from Green Bay to Alabama. Good luck to you with the family. Hopefully you guys find a nice podcast or audiobook to listen to enjoy. Sting Guy says, good morning. I said earlier, don't expect much from the team this year. Still a lot of holes in the roster. Just be happy it'll be better than last season. Yeah, Scott, talking about overreaction, we had the Broncos probably at, what would we say, 9 wins?
I think 9 and 8, 10 and 7 felt about right for me for this team.
Do you feel any differently after that very small preseason game?
No, not yet. I can't. Okay. I haven't seen enough to make me swing one way or the other on a prediction for games. I think this roster is still good enough to be better than average. Again, what I see though is the 2 years I've watched this team prior, and there's still a lot of those same players out there, don't go away in one off season.
No,
some of the bad habits in there don't just automatically go away. The screen passes, the blown assignments on the offensive line. That's going to take a little time. Again, the screen was the big one for me. What I noticed, like, oh, well, that didn't get fixed right away, because the screen is a big weapon in a Sean Payton offense. Is those short dump offs to the running backs. Alvin Kamara averaged 81 receptions 4 years running. They better be able to get the ball to the back outside of the rush, behind those guys coming in. And they weren't able to do it yet. They'll work on it until they get it right.
Yeah. So hopefully it'll be a little bit more explosive too with Javonte Williams back. But yeah, the screen plays did not look great. PFF only has him credited for 2. I feel like there was more than that. I thought there was about 3 or 4 with the first team offense, but maybe 2 is correct. Maybe I'm blurring the first and second team. Ryan Thompson for screens.
Maybe the ones that get knocked down at your face before you get them off are not considered screen passes.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I felt like 3 of the batted balls I saw were supposed to be screens.
Based on how the offensive line worked, I would agree with you on that one. Not the one where I don't think the one where Powers was beat was a screen. I think he just got straight up beat by Blacklock. But that's we'll see how it plays out. Swink McLeod, good to see you. Quentin Caldwell's on the house. Says morning, everyone. Hope you're doing well. Hope things are well with you, Quentin. Always appreciate Quentin coming in and saying hello to us.
It's good to see some familiar faces again now that football is. Some folks took the summer off. Welcome back. It's good to have you back.
Yeah, absolutely. Lou 101, first game, dire line, weak punts, dreadful kicking, too many penalties, big drop by Jerry Jeudy, and decent D late. Then late fourth quarter, 1 score sounded familiar. Sean Payton will fix it. Keep the faith. Yeah, small sample size, a lot of things. And we'll get more of an idea with this 49ers game than we even had with the Cardinals game. So, and I don't care at all that the Broncos gave up a touchdown with the last second with the 4th stringers out there. I mean, it's not a big deal to me.
No, and I agree with Sean Payton on that one. I would rather have them have to go the length of the field for a touchdown with 1 minute and 15 as opposed to kick a field goal with 50 seconds left. Because that was some of the questions, like, why didn't they do this? Well, because they could have taken 2 timeouts and they would have gotten the ball back on the 25 or better with 50 seconds left. Well, that's 2 completions and you're kicking a field goal. The defense was a little soft out there. And the guy that got beat for the final touchdown, I'll be shocked if he's on the roster September 1st.
Yeah, absolutely. Ray J in the house. Good to see you. Mark Schrader. Always love Mark. Hope you're doing well. Big E says, I think as soon as the offensive line gels, the Broncos will start to look better. That's going to be a big one, and hopefully they do. We'll see. I think that's going to be the biggest make or break for the season, the offensive line. I think Russell Wilson, I'm not expecting top 5 quarterback from him ever again, but I think you can get top 10 out of him. But he's a dependent piece off of a offensive line in a run game, and how it looked was not good enough to get to that level of statistical output, in my opinion. So far, we got a long way to go.
The bar's higher. For what is a top 10 quarterback. A top 10 quarterback right now is a really good quarterback that you can win a lot of games with.
Yeah.
So if you can get into the top 10 again, you're feeling pretty good about things.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. The bar is higher. I don't know if we have, Mahomes is arguably not arguably, his start to his career is the best statistical we've ever seen. Now, some of that is because the game has changed and the output is higher for the passing game, but incredible. But for years and years, it's Tom Brady and Peyton Manning. Now we have, 6 to 8 quarterbacks who are vying for that number 2 spot, I guess, behind Mahomes, unfortunately. But we'll continue to see how it is. And unfortunately, almost every single one of them is in the bleeping AFC. It's pretty damn unreal, unfortunate, but what can you do? Michaela Israel, good morning to you. Hope you're doing well. Zach Powers coming in. Good morning. Tim Durr, morning, fellas. What's good, Broncos country? Buck you all. Yeah, and make sure if you guys are Buck you all as well, drop a thumbs up on the way in. Facebook, YouTube, wherever you're at. Subscribe to the show. Subscribe to Mile High Huddle. Follow Scott and I on Twitter. So we appreciate you if you do that for us. And we'd rather have the super chats, but, that's completely free if you're dropping the thumbs up and whatnot. So we appreciate that. But
I was wondering how long we're going to keep calling it Twitter. I was thinking, well, they still have twitter.com as the links to their tweets. It has now changed. It is now x.com.
Well, it's I don't know. I don't really
call it. Are we supposed to just call it X, the X? Follow us on the X. Follow us on X. Follow us. I sound like I'm dropping hallucinogenics.
Sounds like you're promoting something else that maybe a few other super chatters would be interested in, Scott. Maybe dropping an OnlyFans with x.com or something. But yeah, I think the key to language is communication and understanding. And when I say follow us on Twitter or tweet or anything, you know what I'm talking about. So going to be hard for me to have some code switching on that one. Unfortunately,
it's like a stadium name, man.
Yeah.
It was going to be I don't know if they even call it Three Rivers or now as soon as I say that, I can't remember the name of the damn stadium at San Francisco. Iconic, on the water.
Not Safeco, but
it was like a real name, not a phony sponsored name, and now I can't remember.
Candlestick Park.
Oh, that just kills me. Let's move on before I embarrass myself anymore. But it was always freezing there on the water. Candlestick. Thank you, Tim.
I said Candlestick.
Candlestick. It's like it's always going to be Candlestick. It's always going to be nice point, Scott. I can't remember the damn name of the stadium. Well, the point is, I don't know the name of the stadium now. Of course, they're not even in San Francisco anymore. They're like 40 miles south. But Candlestick. Thank you, guys. Yes, it was always going to be Candlestick Park, no matter what they changed the title sponsor to. So Twitter's going to be like that too.
I always love the story of the St. Louis Cardinals. That's my team, so I obviously know the history there. But Augie Bush, owner of the Cardinals back then, came to the league and said, "I want to name it Budweiser Stadium." And they're like, "Oh my God, beer after a stadium? How could you do that? That's so immoral. We will not allow you to do that." It's like, okay, how about Bush Stadium? How about I name it Bush Stadium after my family? They said, okay, that's fine. So they name it Bush Stadium, and then a year later, Budweiser comes out with Bush beer. Classic. Good job, Augie. Always a little workaround there.
That's good.
Yep.
As Jay says, like it's Mile High Stadium. I don't really care. I couldn't tell you. I'm not sure I could tell you off the top of my head what the name of the stadium actually is. It's Mile High to me.
Invesco. No, that's 3 names ago.
Yeah, I really don't know. It's Mile High.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's Mile High Stadium, and that's what it'll be forever and always. So that would be great. Sorry, my wife just sent me a note underneath the thing there, and she said, just come get your AirPods, Natalie. I have no idea where they are. You're on camera. We're live. But yeah, so let's get to the topic here. Today I have an article here from NFL.com, Chad Reuter, who does a lot of good work covering the NFL and a lot of draft stuff as well. I mean, shout out to Chad Reuter because he does a lot of like 4-round and 7-round mock drafts with like analysis. So he's been, lifeblood for a lot of Broncos country the last few years because he actually has written analysis about 2nd and 3rd round picks. So God bless him for that. I don't always agree with the evaluation, but to slot, 300 some players with 300 some picks, I don't envy that. I love the draft. You could not pay me. You could pay me, but I would not do that voluntarily. So shout out to Chad. Wrote an article about all the rookies in the game. And because the Broncos didn't have 2 of their top 3 rookies playing in this game, Marvin Mims is still working back from injury, and Riley Moss is obviously dealing with a hernia-like injury, whatever that means, from Sean Payton's language. But Drew Sanders, wrote about Drew Sanders, gave him a B, and says Drew Sanders did not start for the Broncos in the 18-17 loss to Arizona on Friday night, but he contributed on defense and coverage units. He secured one of his 2 tackles in zone coverage, limiting any gain after the catch by tight end Blake Whitehurt. The athleticism that made him a third-round pick was evident when he was dropping into coverage, with quick hips allowing him to get to the spot. The Cardinals picked up a first down in the second quarter, though, when the ball sailed over his head and he got sucked in on a shorter route. Sanders' speed will be an asset on blitzes, as he showed coming from the A-gap in the first quarter to force a quick incompletion before the Cardinals receivers could finish the routes. While not the strongest linebacker, Sanders was not afraid to fight through his blocks and stick his nose into run plays inside. So Sanders, they gave him a B, thought he looked okay. So hopefully we'll see that continue. Hopefully, though, it'll continue to be the second string, because I thought it did look a tier difference compared to the starters, which it should. But, a lot of times people get all hyped up about rookies coming in like, oh, he's going to definitely start over this player. I'd say hold your horses on that. I thought Jewell and Singleton looked much better on that first team unit than either linebacker on the second string.
Yeah, I agree with you. I didn't see, I wasn't specifically watching Sanders. I was watching the lines of scrimmage much more. So it's hard for me to say that B minus. I just didn't feel that he was that involved. I'm like, this kind of felt forced to me, that I was like, I have to rank a rookie, one of his 2 tackles. And, it's like, I don't know that he really did a whole lot, positive or negative. But Nick, I was really focused on the trenches, and I am looking forward to seeing Marvin Mims and Riley Moss, because I think we will definitely notice Marvin Mims when he's out there. And frankly, if you didn't see Drew Sanders out there that much, that's not necessarily a bad thing for a linebacker.
Yeah, there's a few plays here in the part of Chad Reuter, not Chad Jensen's article here, talks about the strength here with the Drew Sanders. There was a few plays where he got taken on by an offensive lineman and was taken for a ride, which I did not really love. You want that linebacker to be able to come in and stick it. I know there's a power difference there, but speed to power can matter there. So if he can arrive with better leverage, better technique, that'd be good, because otherwise I'm concerned about his ability to get Moses parting the sea kind of stuff with your linebackers, which you really don't want. And I saw that a few times from Sanders, but overall I thought he looked pretty good in this game. I do think that there's still going to be packages for him going forward in as a blitzer as well, and he definitely is an athlete. But the ability to know how to get off blocks as a linebacker, not a blitzer on the line of scrimmage, is a different kind of skill set, and process things properly. He's still a work in progress at that linebacker spot, both physically and mentally.
Just watching it, I'm just thinking that the linebackers should have 1,000 tackles again. Just because they're going to have to clog the middle of the line of scrimmage with numbers, because I don't think they've got the 1 or 2 guys that can control 2 players and hold their ground. Frankly, I have trouble sometimes seeing that they'll be able to handle one-on-one blocking, let alone hold on to a double team. That you're going to have to pinch in with numbers, and the linebackers are going to be real active attacking the line of scrimmage if you're going to stop a run game, just because you're light. You're light in the box right now, Nick.
Yeah, you are light in the box. Really the only cloggers that you have right now that project to be in the rotation would be Mike Purcell, which still don't know what's going to happen with him. Hasn't been out there at all. You can save $3 million from him. He was fine last season, and I'm not saying you should move on from him, but I think the longer he is out, the more you can figure out you can live life without him, maybe. And also DJ Jones, who's dealing with the concussion now. But Zach Allen, Jonathan Harris, Matt Henningsen, these are all kind of like knife in the backfield kind of defensive linemen. So that means those linebackers are going to have to be making plays. They're not going to be freed up as much, and they're going to have to be taking on contact as well. And that's
I saw some instances where the 2 defensive tackles were actually lined up outside. They were lined up over the tackles, leaving that whole middle wide open, where you're going to have the 2 linebackers are going to have to crash in and take on blockers. They're going to have to be tough. It's going to be linebackers are going to earn their money this year for the Denver Broncos. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot. I'm worried about the health, just considering how many hits they're probably going to have to take. But as long as they're in the right position, I don't know if they have the defense to really set themselves up. I can't remember what team it was. Oh, it was the Dallas Cowboys last year. They were playing shout out to Dan Quinn, he's really gone from cover 3 to a lot of match quarters and cover 2 stuff, kind of really changed a lot of what he's done defensive scheme wise. Dallas probably the best defense in football last season, probably again this year, but their defense exploded last season once they figured out that, hey, if we put in Jonathan Hankins, who's only an okay nose tackle, we can free up the linebackers a lot more. And I think their EPA dropped like 0.2 or something, which is an insane ratio for expected points average. So getting somebody up front who can really control the point of attack, I think it's one of the reasons the Cowboys also drafted nose tackle Mozzie Smith. Really control
a great camp from all reports, is somebody to watch.
Yep, Mozzie Smith, defensive tackle. He was the number 1 on Bruce Feldman's freak list for a reason. I mean, he's just
and if there's character concerns, the Cowboys aren't afraid of that.
No, they're not. But that's something I worry about for this Broncos defense. I just don't know if outside of DJ Sanders, they have anybody who can really control the line of scrimmage on the defensive side. And the Arizona Cardinals are not a litmus test for that. I don't know if the San Francisco 49ers are either. Now, Kyle Shanahan's one of the best run game schemers in the entire NFL. I'm not super impressed with the 49ers offensive line talent on paper, but we'll see. I mean, probably the best interior offensive line in football is, unfortunately, the Kansas City Chiefs, and Broncos are going to have to figure out what they're going to do on the defensive line. Otherwise, it's going to be way too easy for Patrick Mahomes.
They're not done. I'll keep saying it until I'm wrong or we announce a couple of new signings. But the Broncos are not done bringing in 300-pound bodies on the defensive line. They just can't be. They just cannot be. There's too many guys out there that can make a difference for this team.
Yeah. Yep, I agree. And defensive tackle is probably number 2 on my NFL draft wish list for next year right now, behind offensive tackle, because as you so eloquently put it yesterday, there's no way in hell that Garrett Bowles is playing on what his contract is set up to be next season. So,
you should take a tackle every year somewhere. I'm not saying use a 1st or 2nd round pick on him, but every year let's grab a 3rd or 4th rounder. And and it's hard. That's why we like having more picks, because more shots means more possibility that you're going to hit.
Yeah.
But you're right. I looked it up, and you're right. They haven't drafted a tackle since Garrett Bowles. You're wondering why you're struggling at offensive tackle? Man, come on. That's 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. That's 6 drafts. How many players are still on the team from even 3 years ago?
Not
Jerry. When Vance Joseph was coach, there's like 3 guys left, Nick, or something like that. It's maybe 5. I don't know, but it's a 90% turnover, and to go 6 years is a full generation of NFL players to not draft an offensive tackle in 6 years. That doesn't sound like the right way to build a team to this guy.
Yeah, if we had a bunch of, data nerds that had more time and money to do that, I'd be curious to see what the hit rate is on, round 3 offensive tackles.
I know what the hit rate is when you don't take a shot.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. But is it just throwing away a pick in that scenario if you have such low odds? I just want to see what the data said. It's like taking a quarterback outside of the 1st round.
We can go through the drafts and look through them and say, you missed on 3/4 of these guys in the last 6 years.
Yep. And I think talking about like the day 3 kind of offensive tackles, the question becomes, you're probably not getting a quality offensive tackle there, but can you get one that is good enough that is like pennies on the dollar? I think that's the avenue if you're looking to draft that direction. But that's a whole different conversation. Quentin Caldwell coming in here saying, random question, is it better to get Lion coffee from the company itself, or is it okay to get it from Amazon? I think probably better to get it from Lion Coffee itself, because I would imagine that Amazon probably pockets some when you order it through them. But maybe you have Prime and it's a better deal for you to get it from Amazon. I think whatever. I mean, if you're getting Lion Coffee, thumbs up overall. That's great. And shout out to Patrick. Maybe he could answer you after the fact as well. But thank you so much, Patrick. Lion Coffee.
And Patrick will see this, and if he answers, we'll say in here, just hey, go to Lion Coffee, but lioncoffee.com. Patrick keeps us well caffeinated. It's been going on a while now, so thank you, Patrick. Big E Bronco has a suggestion. He says, go get Ndamukong Suh to put that guy right in the middle. I don't know that you're in the position to get a guy like that who's on the one more year on his contract, 2 more years on his contract, that you would either have to overpay one, which frankly, this guy's at that level that have made all that money, that they're interested in playing for a Super Bowl contender, and you just don't have that feeling as a franchise at this moment. You go 9-8, 10-7, get into the playoffs with some positive momentum, then you can sign those guys on 1-year deals that are willing to come in and say, I like what they're doing. Let's take a shot with these guys. I just don't see it right now, Nick.
I don't either, and I'm hoping that there'll be some defensive tackles available. But long term, it's a position the Broncos could certainly address, and we know that Sean Payton, in his time with the Saints and his Bill Parcells lineage, coaching lineage, means that he's going to address the trenches in the draft early and often. I can't think of too many defensive tackles they traded up for to go get, but I knew they really liked. They took Sheldon Rankins early in the first, and they've taken a lot of big, versatile edges as well. Those type of like big linear body types, like Cam Jordan.
Sheldon
He's
Rankins,
an edge.
Missouri.
What was that?
Was he Missouri?
Rankins? He
Sheldon
was
Rankins.
Louisville.
Okay. I'm thinking of somebody else then.
Sheldon Richardson?
That might be who I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
We took pride at Scout in making sure that our 5 stars were going to be eligible, and we went 49 of 50 one year, and that was the one guy that didn't make it into school was Sheldon Richardson. I think. And if not, I'm sorry, Sheldon, you were an excellent academic person, and I'm confusing you. But Keith says, I like Scott's idea to get some big guys in the middle that can free up edges by taking double teams. That's not a Scott concept by any stretch of the imagination. When you're running a 3-4 or, a 5-3 in this case, but when you're running 3 down linemen, that's their job. Their job is to hold on to space. If you get anything else out of them, it's gravy. But their job is to just hold the line of scrimmage and take on double teams. That's it. That's the basis of a 3-4 defense. Is your 4, 2 edges, 2 inside guys are the stars of that defense. It's a mother effer of a job. It is no glory whatsoever, but that is the basic principle of a 3-4 is taking on a double team and holding the line. And it's light right now, Nick. You're light on DL.
Yeah. And I did not think Zach Allen had a great game against Cardinals as well, which puts a little bit of a red flag for me as well. It's a big thing. Zach Allen's killing it. Well, is it because the Broncos offensive line backups and in general stink, or is it because Zach Allen's great? We won't know until we know.
4-3 end.
He had a lot of B gap rushes last year where he was pretty successful in that, but he was playing with JJ Watt and some first round linebackers behind him. So I don't know.
Would you be better off? And you'll see multiples. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I saw one of the teams was introduced, their starting defense was introduced as a nickel, as a 4-2-5. You'll see some 4s, some 4 down linemen. And that might be where this team is better off. Or are you better off with a 4-3 with Allen on one side, Gregory on the other, and then you let Baron Browning and Drew Sanders run free on the outside with a single inside linebacker, or move Singleton around or whatnot? But again, how are you going to make up for your lack of size and strength in the trenches? I think you need another man. You're going to need another guy down there.
Yep.
And eventually that becomes a 4-man front instead of a 3.
Yeah, and they ran a lot of penny front in the game, which is what is a penny front? It's when you have the 3 interior defensive linemen, your 2 edges, and a singular linebacker. We saw a good bit of 4-2-5 with 2 interior defensive linemen, 2 edge rushers, 2 linebackers, and then your classic, nickel and 2 safeties and 2 boundary corners, and a fair amount of base as well. So I'm curious to see how much rotation we see going forward. The Broncos luckily play in the AFC West, which is very much has been a nickel defense dominant team or division, but the Chiefs kind of pivoted last season, going a lot more heavy in their 12 and 21 personnel. Granted, Travis Kelce is essentially the best slot in football. Is he a wide receiver? Is he a tight end? I don't know, but they're using a lot of that, and that means Broncos are going to have to be able to at least live in base and hold up on the defensive line. And against Joe Thuney, the centers, Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith out there in the interior trio for the Chiefs, Broncos don't match up super well against that trio.
Not a lot of teams do, but again, the defensive line, my biggest concern from the game was the offensive line. My biggest concern for this team is still the defensive line, your ability to stop guys on 1st and 10. You know, if you're looking at 2nd and 5 and 3rd and 2s all game, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. Like I said yesterday, Nick, I felt really good about the perimeter of this team. You know, a donut team is, you know, got a team without a quarterback. You got a hole in the middle. Well, it's a donut right now. You feel really good about what you've got around the edges. Right there in the middle, the 3 guys on the defensive line, the 3 guys inside. It's the lines of scrimmage worry me a little bit. Yeah. Not as much as the entire team last year. And at least we're talking about pieces instead of everything's off the rails and it's impossible to tell what to do. Lawrence comes in. He says, I think we need another defensive star. Who doesn't? Yeah. To make Patrick Surtain shine more. If someone was there to rush quarterbacks thrown his way is what we should be looking for. And they've tried, Lawrence. That's the thing. Can Randy Gregory be that guy this year? You're paying him to. He's making number 1 edge money this year. If he doesn't, he'll be gone next year. He won't play on that contract next year either. Otherwise, if he does, great. You've got him under contract for another year. But his contract is set up that if he does not produce this year, he's gone. Baron Browning hasn't been able to stay on the field. Christopher Allen, you've got some guys there. Christopher Allen is back on the field. Can he make an impact? Maybe. Nick Bonito, incremental improvements. Jonathan Cooper has been okay. But yeah, I mean, everybody needs the best pass defense in the world is a quarterback on his ass. And if you're throwing it up more because you're under pressure, it offers more opportunities for your defensive backs to get interceptions. And the pass rush for sure. I mean, it's a big one, Lawrence. It's a good shout.
Yeah, the Broncos don't have a star on their defensive front, and that's probably the biggest thing for an elite defense, in my opinion. Unless you have, just put it in Madden terms, 6 to 8 guys who are 80s across the board that you can rotate, kind of like we saw with the Eagles last season. Hargrave is a very good player, but he's not, you know, Aaron Donald, Chris Jones level defensive tackle, but they went 8 deep on that unit. It's pretty hard to do that. Also, to build that type of defense, typically you only see that for a singular season because it's almost impossible to keep that much talent together on the defensive line and healthy at the same time. So it's a blip. It's not really a sustainable model. So that's why teams just continually invest in it. I like to use the analogy of building a fire. You know, you don't just build a fire and then let it go and then put logs back on it after it's, you know, smoldering. No, you want to keep continually feeding it. And that's what you want to do in the trenches. But that's something that the Broncos have not done so well on the defensive line. Losing to Wazirike is definitely a sting, but we'll see. Broncos have that's parity in the NFL, right? No such thing as a perfect team. You're always going to have areas of weaknesses that you want to address. And right now, the Broncos defensive line is a big one. Scott, I will say I'll disagree with you a little bit. On paper, I think the offensive line has more talent than the defensive line, but for how this team is built, I think struggles in the offensive line are going to be much more amplified than that on the defensive line.
I have more faith that the offensive line will be a positive unit for this team than I do the defensive line. Not relative importance. I just think that because they have more talent, the investment in it, I think the offensive line, personnel-wise, is okay, theoretically. I feel we talk about ceilings and floors. I feel the ceiling of this offensive line is higher than the ceiling of the defensive line. I just don't think you got the bodies on the DL. I think you do on the OL.
I agree. I guess my point, you probably agree with this too, is that the defensive line, because of the pieces around them, I think they can mitigate some of those. And if you're just getting beat up, you know, there's a point where it doesn't matter. But I think overall they can mitigate that a little bit.
Throw extra bodies at it. You know, you can scheme. You can go with a 4. I can bring somebody up in the gap. I can help cover for a bad defensive line easier than I can cover for a bad offensive line.
Yes, it's because you have
as
Simmons
a unit. I'm more concerned about the defensive line playing at an NFL plus level than I am the offensive line. Not the importance, importance of each unit.
Yeah, not putting words in your mouth. I just think the way I'm viewing it right now is you can hide the defensive line, especially because you have incredible secondary players. I mean, probably 2 of the best in the entire NFL at safety and cornerback. That means you can kind of scheme up a little bit. The offensive line.
I have more faith in this OL than I do the DL.
Yeah. Oh, man, yeah, the OL did not look great. And we haven't even
Sidecar.
talked about the kicking game at all. So I guess we did a little bit, but we'll follow that. Special teams, special teams, special teams. Keith Brugman coming in saying, Marvin Mims or Riley Moss, you're more excited to see in the upcoming preseason games. I'm going to say Marvin Mims because I do not think we are going to see Riley Moss
Yeah,
coming
I was
off
wondering
the.
how much we were going to see either of them, to be honest with you. Unless I don't remember him saying that Mims was going to play for sure this weekend.
I don't know if Mims is going to play for sure, but he has been in practice and training camp, and I think they're playing it easy with him. I think we will see Mims this week. I don't think we're going to see Moss at all. Unfortunately for Moss, for the rules, I think they have to keep him on the active roster. Where like Browning, because he started off training camp and everything on the pup, they can put him on the short-term IR, and if he can come back after 8 weeks. But I think Moss is not eligible for that designation. So definitely excited to see Mims more than Moss because I don't think we're going to see Moss.
Yeah. And frankly, the wide receivers they're more exciting than the cornerbacks. It's just a cornerback doing his job should be boring. I don't want to hear his name. He's not getting targeted. They're going opposite directions. Mims should be a factor in the kicking game, and with the ball in his hands through 6 to 8 targets, possibly a week. So Mims should be more active. I can think of a better word than active when he's out there. Tim Durr comes in. He says, I know you guys have probably talked about it, but there were some positive things I saw from Russ, but him being uncomfortable in the pocket really scares me. It should. As a 5'11 quarterback, having guys in his face is bad. We're not talking about Roethlisberger back there who could stand up like a statue and throw over guys draped on his legs. It's a different style of quarterback. And if you need to keep Russ clean and he needs to get rid of the ball quicker, we've talked about that for sure. And the arm strength is just fine. And the pocket needs to be moved. He needs to be bootlegging. They need to not leave a stationary target back there for people to tee off on.
The thing is, Russell looking comfortable back there. He was pressured on, 8 of his dropbacks, 7 of his dropbacks. I mean, I don't know how you could look comfortable back there getting hit that much. And also with how much the Cardinals blitzed in that. I think the Broncos will have to figure out. And teams last season, they kind of just, really were soft on their edges rushing the quarterback because they thought the Broncos run game personnel was but, and they were BUTT. And this year, hopefully, going to be a little bit more aggressive and take advantage of the soft edges. And with that, then maybe Russ can escape the pocket a little bit more. But right now, teams are just kind of, playing slow roll with their pass rush on the outside and trying to keep Russ contained because they know that he will probably try to escape. So better run game will hopefully protect that. Again, it just keeps coming back to the offensive line. There are quarterbacks out there that are so talented that you don't have to have an elite offensive line for them to function. I think Russell Wilson's play style specifically is not one of those kind of guys. He's not the quick pass, pre-snap, full field reads. Like if we had Peyton Manning back there, obviously you want to protect him. But that kind of cerebral quarterback, I think his ability in the quick game can mitigate offensive line issues, pass rush issues. I don't think that's Russell Wilson. I think he's as dependent.
That's not fair to pretty much every other quarterback that's ever suited up.
Okay, well, let's say Joe Burrow then. Right now, his style of play, I think, would be better to protect a leaky offensive line where I think Wilson is emphatically dependent on the success of that unit in the run game.
Prime Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
Who, for the worst team, I mean, his numbers for a bad Houston Texans team his last year were pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yes, I get it. Michael Ranchio going to close us out here today with the stars. Appreciate you, Michael. He says, great show today. Nick and Scott on Broncos for breakfast. It's good to be back 3 days a week. Go Broncos and buck 'em.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. Appreciate you, Michael, coming in. Hopefully everyone's doing well. Big E comes in and says, what kicking game? We don't have one. And, now I know we can hang out here. Ernie Mays, Go Broncos Country only. Appreciate you, Ernie. Hope you're doing well. And that's going to have to do it for us, guys. We will be back again. I'll be back again tonight with Carl on building the Broncos, and Scott and I will be back again tomorrow morning to talk a little bit of NFL and some Falcons as well. So Falcons are an interesting team this year. I'm excited to cover them. Should be a really awesome, fun offense back there for that team. So make sure you guys are following Scott and I on X so we don't get sued. Scott is at Scout Kennedy. I'm at Nick Kendell, MHH. Also follow us at BFB_pod, as well as at Mile High Huddle. If you haven't done so yet, join us at facebook.com/Mile High Huddle and facebook.com/Mile High Huddle pod. And as the ticker says here underneath, please subscribe, like, and share over on YouTube and on Facebook as well. Drop the thumbs up on the way. And shout out to Troy Bauer for the super chat coming in here. Gary Palmer is in here as well. Michael Ronquillo, FA in here, dropping $49.99 twice. Thank you so much. Lawrence Rivera coming in as well. Michael Ronquillo. Did I miss anybody, Scott? And I know we had.
You can click on that starred tab, and it will show you exactly who I marked as.
Okay, I did do that. I just wanted to make sure.
And Troy came in nice and early and gave us a new topic. Michael coming in, opening and closing, and FA right there coming in hot. Thank you, FA. And then Gary Palmer, always big for us. And Lawrence, appreciate you over on Facebook too. And everyone else, thanks for being here. I hope y'all had a good hour, spent a good hour with us.
Yeah, always a lot of fun. Fun to talk the Broncos, and we will start to pivot towards that 49ers game as well, and hopefully some injury news as well. Sounded like a lot of Broncos were out yesterday's practice, but that was a lot of them I think were just being conservative with some dudes. So we'll know a lot more about the injuries after today's injury as well. So Scott, any final thoughts?
No, just Keith. I'll say hello to Keith. Say hello to Keith again. Bringing up Roethlisberger made me remember how I wanted him for a replacement for Elway. There might not have been a stronger quarterback in the pocket in the history of this game than Ben Roethlisberger. I mean, the guy was an ox back there. Dan Marino, you don't have to be mobile to not be sacked. Dan Marino was one of the least sacked quarterbacks ever because he had a lightning quick release. There's more than one way to skin a cat in this game. There is no. We can talk prototypes, but there is no one way to get it done. And having Russell Wilson stand in the pocket, in a leaky pocket like Ben Roethlisberger, is disaster. So you need to shore up the line in front of him, which the Broncos have put a lot of effort into doing. And then you got to get creative. You got to move the pocket around. And Jeremy, I guess my one final thought here, and we'll come back to Patrick. Was Russ struggling last year? Has increased blitzes from opponents, which is hurting our O-line. If Russ fixes it, other stuff should slow as well. And you know what's going to help slow down blitzes more than anything, Nick? A running game. Mm-hmm. If I can run it down your damn throat, you are on your heels. Yeah. And you're in 2nd and 4. You're in 3rd and 1s. 3rd and 8s are going to be really, really bad for this team. So you got to win on 1st down, which the Broncos haven't done in the 2 years I've been covering this team.
Yeah, I will add the something, just bringing it on home, full circle for us. You know what else really helps slowing down a very aggressive blitzing team? Well-executed screen game. And that's something that the Broncos are working towards, hopefully. And somebody's saying, Scott, what are you wearing there? We're in Chelsea Football Club, the very active spenders right now. Yeah,
they've dropped about $200 million in new players in the last 24 hours. So
that's a lot of capital.
Rich American owner ruining international football again. So cheers.
Those damn Americans. But appreciate everybody coming in here. Everyone have a great rest of your day. Continue to choose kindness and compassion. I'll see you again tonight with Carl on building the Broncos. But until then, have a great one. Go Broncos.